The Galactic Council had been running warfare like a particularly tedious insurance claim for 3,000 years. Every Tuesday at 1400 hours, species would file their grievances in triplicate, schedule their battles for the following month, and engage in what they generously called civilized conflict. Ambassador Krex of the Zelathi Empire adjusted his ceremonial war ribbons with the same enthusiasm most people reserved for dental surgery. Standing 7 feet tall with skin like polished obsidian and the personality of a tax auditor, Krex embodied everything the Council considered proper about interstellar relations. The mining dispute with the Vorthan Federation, he announced to the assembled delegates, will commence next Thursday at 0900 hours. Standard engagement protocols apply. Casualties shall not exceed 3% of deployed forces, and all participants must submit post-battle reports within 48 hours. Captain Jake Morrison, Earth's representative, slouched in his chair like he was watching paint dry. At 35, Jake had the kind of face that suggested he'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed either time. His uniform looked like he'd slept in it, which he probably had. "You know," Jake said, raising his hand with all the enthusiasm of a dead fish, "back home we have a saying about bringing a knife to a gunfight." The chamber fell silent. Krex's eye stalks swiveled toward the human with visible irritation. "Captain Morrison, warfare is not about crude efficiency. It's about maintaining galactic order, preserving honor, and ensuring minimal disruption to trade routes." Jake nodded slowly. "Right, so it's like chess, but with more paperwork and fewer people actually dying." "Precisely." Krex beamed, missing the sarcasm entirely. "The Terran delegation continues to demonstrate why humanity requires extensive cultural education before participating in serious galactic affairs." The other delegates murmured agreement. Humans had only joined the Council 18 months ago, and everyone agreed they were charmingly primitive. Their technology was adequate, their diplomacy was crude, and their approach to conflict resolution involved what the Vorthan ambassador had described as disturbingly creative violence. The Zelathi-Vorthan mining dispute had been brewing for 6 months. Both sides wanted the same asteroid belt, both had filed the proper forms, and both had scheduled their ritual battle with the enthusiasm of people planning a root canal. The winner would get mining rights, the loser would file an appeal, and everyone would go home feeling properly civilized. The human colonies in Sector 7, Krex continued, fall within the disputed territory. As per Council regulations, they will be relocated before hostilities commence. Jake's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. They relocated. Naturally. The settlement contains approximately 12,000 humans engaged in agricultural and mining operations. Standard evacuation protocols allow for 72 hours notice. And if they don't want to be relocated? Krex's mandibles clicked in what passed for alien laughter. "Captain Morrison, this is warfare. Personal preferences are irrelevant." Jake stood up, stretched, and gave Krex the kind of smile that suggested he was thinking about something deeply unpleasant. "Ambassador, I think you're about to get a very expensive education in human nature." The session adjourned with Krex feeling smugly superior and Jake looking like he was already planning something that would give insurance companies nightmares. Neither of them realized they'd just lit the fuse on the galaxy's most spectacular military revolution. And in the corridors afterward, lesser diplomats whispered about human unpredictability, but they agreed it hardly mattered. After all, what could one primitive species possibly do against 3 millennia of civilized warfare? They were about to find out. The Zelathi battle fleet arrived at Colony 7 with the punctuality of a Swiss watch and the firepower of a small star. 12 dreadnoughts, 36 escort vessels, and enough bureaucratic paperwork to choke a Vorthan tax collector. They even brought cameras to document their civilized victory. What they found was not what they expected. The colony was still there, which was their first surprise. The second surprise was the greeting committee, 3 teenagers on hover bikes, doing donuts around the lead dreadnought while playing what could only be described as the galaxy's most aggressive polka music. Admiral Vextar, commanding the Zelathi fleet, opened communications with the confidence of someone who'd read the manual. Human settlement. This is Admiral Vextar of the Zelathi Imperial Navy. You have violated evacuation protocols. Surrender immediately for processing. The response came from a woman who sounded like she was chewing gum and filing her nails simultaneously. Hey there, Admiral Vex. This is Commander Lisa Park. Thanks for stopping by, but we're not really into the whole surrender thing. Rain check? Yeah. Vextar's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. This wasn't in the manual. Commander Park, you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. This is a formal military engagement. Oh, I understand perfectly, Lisa replied. You want to blow up our stuff, take our asteroid belt, and file some forms about it. Very civilized. Very predictable. That's when the shooting started. Except it wasn't shooting in any way the Zelathi recognized. The colony's mining lasers, which should have been decorative at best, had somehow been jury-rigged into weapons that could punch through military-grade shields. Garbage scows were launching what appeared to be kitchen appliances at relativistic speeds. And somewhere in the chaos, someone was using industrial-grade food processors to create electromagnetic pulses. Admiral Vextar watched his lead escort vessel get disabled by what his sensors insisted was a modified coffee machine. What in the name of the 7 hells is happening? He demanded. Yes, son. Sir, his tactical officer reported with the tone of someone having an existential crisis. The humans appear to be using improvised weapons. My computer can't classify half of what they're shooting at us. The battle, if you could call it that, lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, 3 Zelathi ships were disabled, 2 were retreating in confusion, and the rest were wondering if they'd accidentally invaded a planet of lunatics. Commander Lisa Park's voice crackled over the comm again, still infuriatingly casual. Thanks for playing, boys. Same time next week? On the Zelathi flagship, Admiral Vextar stared at his tactical displays like they were written in a dead language. His forces had been outmaneuvered by farmers using kitchen equipment. His military academy training had not prepared him for an enemy that turned agricultural machinery into siege weapons and used elevator music as psychological warfare. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, the humans are broadcasting something. The main screen flickered to life, showing Lisa Park in what appeared to be a makeshift command center that looked suspiciously like someone's garage. She was a woman in her early 40s with the kind of smile that suggested she enjoyed her work far too much. Admiral Vextar, right? Listen, I know this is probably confusing for you. You showed up expecting a nice, clean, civilized battle with proper forms and minimal casualties. But here's the thing about humans, we don't really do civilized when people threaten our homes. She leaned forward, and her smile got wider. We do creative. We do vicious. And we do whatever it takes to win. Your rules are adorable, but they're not our rules. The transmission cut out, leaving Vextar staring at a blank screen and wondering how to explain to the Galactic Council that he'd been defeated by a species that weaponized coffee makers. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other species were receiving their own crash course in human military philosophy. The news spread like wildfire. The newest members of the Galactic Council had just rewritten the rules of engagement using household appliances and an alarming lack of respect for proper procedure. The age of civilized warfare was officially over, and nobody had asked permission. The emergency session of the Galactic Council looked like a support group for trauma victims, which wasn't far from the truth. Ambassador Krex sat in the center of the chamber, his usual composure replaced by the haunted expression of someone who discovered his worldview was fundamentally wrong. They used a blender, he said for the 4th time, a food preparation device, against military-grade armor. The Vorthan representative, Ambassador Theklon, wasn't in much better shape. The humans offered to teach us their superior tactics. When we declined, they demonstrated by turning our own mining equipment against us. They made our excavators dance. Our excavators do not dance, Krex. They are not designed to dance. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the gallery, looking like he was watching his favorite comedy show. Next to him, Dr. Marcus Webb was sketching something that looked suspiciously like a weapon designed from office supplies. The human delegation will explain themselves, declared Council Prime Mindar, a species that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a filing cabinet. This unprecedented violation of warfare protocols threatens the very foundation of galactic civilization. Jake stood up with the enthusiasm of someone about to order lunch. Happy to explain, Your Primeness. See, you folks have been playing war like it's a board game. Very polite. Very predictable. Very boring. We prefer the kind where people actually try to win. The chamber erupted in scandalized chittering. The concept of actually trying to win a war was apparently revolutionary. Dr. Marcus Webb, a man who looked like he'd gotten his PhD in making things explode, raised his hand. If I may, I've prepared a small demonstration of adaptive military engineering. Before anyone could object, he pulled out what appeared to be a standard council datapad. With a few quick modifications involving a paper clip, a rubber band, and something he'd scraped from the bottom of his shoe, the datapad began emitting a high-pitched whine. This, Marcus announced cheerfully, is now a non-lethal electromagnetic pulse generator capable of disabling standard council electronics within a 30-meter radius. Half the chamber's equipment immediately shut down. The silence that followed was the kind usually reserved for natural disasters or tax audits. Ambassador Thick Lon was the first to speak. You weaponized a datapad. Oh, that's nothing, Marcus replied. Yesterday I turned a coffee machine into a plasma cannon. Took about 20 minutes and some spare parts from a broken hover bike. The trick is understanding that everything is a weapon if you think about it the right way. This statement caused what could only be described as a galactic panic attack. Representatives from 47 species simultaneously realized that their entire military doctrine was based on the assumption that weapons were only things specifically designed to be weapons. The Kethari delegation, a warrior species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of honorable combat, looked like they were having a collective nervous breakdown. This is chaos, their ambassador, General Rock Neth, rumbled. Warfare has rules, traditions. Honor, you cannot simply improvise victory from kitchen appliances. Why not? Jake asked. Seems to work pretty well. That's when they got the report from Sector 12. The Vorthans, apparently inspired by human creativity, had attempted to use their own improvised tactics against a minor trade dispute with the Kiexlari Commerce Guild. The results were spectacular, catastrophic, and had somehow turned a disagreement about shipping rates into a three-system conflict involving weaponized cargo containers and what the reports described as militarized accounting software. Council Prime Mindar's carapace clicked ominously. The humans have infected the galaxy with their chaotic approach to conflict resolution. We prefer to think of it as evolution, Jake said. You've been playing checkers for 3,000 years. We're teaching you chess. This is not chess, Krex protested. This is madness. Jake's smile was the kind that suggested he was enjoying himself far too much. Same thing, really. The difference is that madness actually works. As the session devolved into the galactic equivalent of a food fight, one thing became clear: humanity hadn't just joined the Galactic Council. They'd accidentally revolutionized it, and nobody was quite sure if that was a good thing or the beginning of the end of civilized space. The only certainty was that the galaxy would never be boring again. 6 weeks after what historians would later call the kitchen appliance incident, the Galactic Council faced an uncomfortable truth that human military tactics were spreading like a virus, and they were terrifyingly effective. The emergency war room looked like a disaster had mated with a nervous breakdown and had ugly children. Representatives from 12 species sat around a table that had been hastily reinforced after the Kethari ambassador put his fist through it during the previous meeting. We need their help, General Rockneth said, the words coming out like he was passing a kidney stone. It's the humans. We need to understand their methods before our enemies do. Ambassador Krex looked like he'd been personally betrayed by the universe. You're suggesting we hire the humans as military consultants. I'm suggesting we learn from them before they accidentally conquer the galaxy by turning our lunchboxes into siege weapons. Captain Jake Morrison entered the room with the casual confidence of someone who'd been expecting this conversation for weeks. Behind him, Commander Lisa Park was grinning like she'd just been handed the keys to a weapons factory. "Gentlemen, ladies, various unclassifiable entities," Jake began, settling into his chair. "I understand you'd like a crash course in advanced combat theory for dummies." He activated the room's holographic display, which immediately showed a presentation titled, "Why Your Military Doctrine is Adorably Quaint, a Human Perspective." "Let's start with basics," Jake continued. "You've been treating warfare like a formal dance. Everybody knows the steps, everybody follows the music, and everybody goes home feeling civilized. We treat warfare like a bar fight where the stakes are everything you care about." The first slide showed a comparison chart. On one side, traditional galactic warfare, scheduled, predictable, civilized. On the other, human warfare, chaotic, adaptive, effective. "The problem with your approach," Lisa added, stepping forward, "is that it assumes your enemy will play by the same rules. What happens when they don't?" But Ambassador Thecklon protested, "Without rules, warfare becomes barbaric and civilized." Exactly," Jake said. "And when civilization is on the line, being uncivilized is often the only civilized thing to do." The next hour was a masterclass in reconceptualizing everything the galaxy thought it knew about conflict. Jake and Lisa walked them through human military history, from asymmetric warfare to resource improvisation to psychological tactics that made the alien delegates uncomfortable just thinking about them. "Your turn," Lisa announced. "Time for practical application." What followed could only be described as the galaxy's most expensive comedy hour. The Zelathi tried to weaponize their ceremonial tea service and managed to flood their own command center. The Vorthans attempted psychological warfare and ended up giving themselves anxiety attacks. The Kyuxlari tried to turn their accounting software into a weapon and accidentally audited themselves into bankruptcy. But the Kethari were special. General Rokneth, a warrior who had spent his entire life perfecting the art of honorable single combat, had found himself facing Commander Park in what was supposed to be a demonstration of adaptive tactics. She handed him a stapler, a rubber plant, and a motivational poster about teamwork. "Defeat me using these," she said simply. Rokneth stared at the objects like they were written in a dead language. His warrior instincts, honed over decades of traditional combat, were completely useless. He tried to use the stapler as a projectile weapon. He attempted to strangle Lisa with the rubber plant. He even tried psychological warfare by reading the motivational poster very menacingly. Lisa defeated him using a paper airplane and his own shoelaces. The silence that followed was the sound of an entire species having an existential crisis. "I don't understand," Rokneth said quietly. "I am Kethari. We are the galaxy's premier warriors. I have never been defeated in honorable combat." "That's the problem," Lisa replied gently. "You've been fighting honorably. We've been fighting to win." Jake nodded. "Honor is great until you're dead." "Kes, dead people don't get to be honorable anymore." As the session ended, the assembled delegates had one inescapable realization. Humans weren't just better at warfare because they were more violent or more creative. They were better because they understood something the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Sometimes survival matters more than rules, and that realization was about to change everything. The Galactic Council's attempt to contain humanity was about as successful as trying to contain a supernova with a fishnet. What started as a carefully planned intervention became the galaxy's most spectacular example of why you should never poke sleeping predators. The containment fleet consisted of representatives from every major military power in the galaxy. Zelathi dreadnoughts, Vorthan siege platforms, Kethari battle cruisers, and even the mysterious QX-Lari audit ships, which nobody really understood, but everyone agreed were probably dangerous. They surrounded Earth with the confidence of adults dealing with a precocious child who'd gotten too big for their britches. That confidence lasted approximately 12 minutes. Commander Lisa Park sat in what used to be a McDonald's, but had been converted into a command center, complete with tactical displays made from repurposed menu boards and a strategy table that was actually 3 picnic tables welded together. "Jake," she said into her headset, which appeared to be made from a gaming controller and some dental floss. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Something about final warnings and galactic order. Captain Jake Morrison's voice crackled back from orbit, where he was apparently commanding Earth's defense from a converted pizza delivery truck. Tell them we're busy. Also, did you remember to activate the elevator music protocol? Oh, it's already playing. The Zelathi are reporting unprecedented psychological pressure from our sonic warfare. I think Admiral Vextar is having flashbacks to the coffee machine incident. What the containment fleet didn't understand was that humans had spent the last 2 months doing what humans do best, turning absolutely everything into a weapon. Earth's defense wasn't based on traditional military doctrine. It was based on the principle that if something existed, it could probably be used to ruin someone's day. Food trucks became mobile missile platforms. Street musicians were equipped with sonic weapons disguised as instruments. The International Space Station had been converted into something the Pentagon was calling a kinetic cheese delivery system, which nobody wanted to explain to the aliens. But the real stroke of genius was the janitor bots. Every major city on Earth had thousands of them, small, innocuous cleaning robots that everyone ignored. Lisa had spent weeks programming them with what she called aggressive tidying protocols. They were still cleaning. They were just cleaning the alien ships now. The first Zelathi commander to report that his weapon systems were being disassembled by something that kept apologizing for us. The inconvenience was dismissed as suffering from combat stress. The fifth commander to report the same thing caused galaxy-wide panic. This is Admiral Vextar to all fleet commanders. The transmission went out. We are dealing with an enemy that has weaponized customer service. And repeat, they have weaponized customer service. General Rokneth, commanding the Kethari battle group, was having his own crisis. His warriors, trained for glorious combat, found themselves fighting an enemy that used elevator music as psychological warfare and kept offering them snacks during combat operations. They're not taking this seriously, he reported to the fleet command. They're treating this like some kind of game. It's not a game to them. Jake Morrison's voice cut through the communications chaos. It's Tuesday. Mate, that's when the real battle began. Not the one the aliens expected, with formal engagements and proper military protocol, but the one humans had been preparing for their entire history, total, chaotic, creative warfare where the only rule was that there were no rules. The containment fleet found themselves fighting an enemy that turned shopping malls into fortresses, used traffic management systems as tactical networks, and somehow convinced half the galaxy that this was all an elaborate team-building exercise. By the time the smoke cleared, something unprecedented happened. The various alien species, united in their shared trauma of fighting humans, had accidentally formed the first truly cooperative military alliance in galactic history. They'd also realized that they'd been thinking about warfare completely wrong for 3,000 years. The final transmission of the battle came from Commander Park, still sitting in her McDonald's command center, addressing the assembled fleet. Thanks for the practice, everyone. Same time next week? We've got some new ideas involving food courts and parking meters we'd love to try out. The galaxy's response was unanimous silence, followed by what could only be described as collective surrender to the inevitable. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They'd accidentally improved it by showing everyone what they were really capable of when they stopped being polite. 6 months later, the galaxy looked like it had been reorganized by someone with a severe case of ADHD and an unlimited budget for office supplies. Captain Jake Morrison, now officially the head of the newly created Department of Creative Problem Solving, sat in his office, a converted Starbucks in downtown Geneva, reviewing the latest reports with the satisfaction of someone who'd accidentally revolutionized civilization. The Galactic Council had relocated to Earth, partly because humans had the most experience dealing with chaos, and partly because everyone agreed that if you couldn't beat them, you might as well join them close enough to keep an eye on them. Ambassador Krex knocked on Jake's door with the tentative politeness of someone who'd learned never to assume anything was what it seemed anymore. His ceremonial war ribbons had been replaced with what appeared to be a badge reading "I survive human military consulting." Captain Morrison, Krex began, settling into a chair that had probably been stolen from a food court. The quarterly reports are disturbing. Jake looked up from what appeared to be a weapon design sketched on a napkin. A disturbing how? Good disturbing or bad disturbing? Galactic conflicts are down 97%. Trade disputes that used to take decades are being resolved in hours. The Cathari warrior caste has collectively enrolled in anger management therapy. General Roke Neth is now running meditation retreats. And that's bad because... Krex's mandibles clicked nervously. It's not bad. It's terrifying. The galaxy is functioning better than it has in millennia, and we have no idea how you did it. Jake leaned back in his chair, which squeaked ominously. We didn't do anything special, Krex. Untuchen. Then go there. We just stopped pretending that being civilized meant being ineffective. Through the window, they could see the new Geneva Galactic Complex. Their representatives from 47 species were working together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. The Zelathi were collaborating with humans on agricultural technology. The Vorthans were teaching aliens how to weaponize bureaucracy constructively. The Kixlari had somehow turned their audit ships into mobile mediation centers. The efficiency reports are what really concern me, Krex continued. Productivity is up 300% across all sectors. Think social. Military spending is down 80%. Even the mysterious Outer Rim territories are requesting membership in the Council. Sounds like we're doing something right. That's what terrifies everyone. We've established new protocols based on your suggestions. If humans suggest it, think twice. If they insist, run. But people keep asking for more suggestions. Jake grinned. Speaking of which, Lisa and I have been working on some ideas for improving interstellar transportation. Something about using fast food delivery networks as the basis for a new hyperspace routing system. Krex went very still. Please tell me you're joking. We call it the Pizza Portal Project. The theory is that if you can deliver hot food across a city in 30 minutes, you should be able to deliver anything across the galaxy in 30 hours. The look of existential dread on Krex's face was the same one aliens had been wearing for 6 months, ever since they'd realized that humans didn't just think outside the box. They didn't even acknowledge that boxes existed. Jake, Krex said quietly, there's something the Council needs to tell you, something we discovered during the integration process. What's that? The galaxy, the entire galactic civilization, it was designed as a testing ground by a species that disappeared millions of years ago. They were apparently trying to create the perfect civilization through controlled conflict and gradual evolution. Jake nodded slowly. And you're the solution they were looking for, humans. You're what 3 million years of galactic evolution was supposed to produce. The Council wasn't just invaded by primitives. We were upgraded by the universe itself. The silence stretched between them like a rubber band waiting to snap. Finally, Jake spoke. So you're telling me that the entire galaxy was basically a really complicated video game, and humans are the final boss? More like you're the cheat code that makes everything work properly. Jake considered this for a moment, then broke into the kind of smile that had been giving aliens nightmares for months. Cool. In that case, wait until you hear our ideas for improving galactic governance using reality TV principles and laser tag. Krex put his head in his hands and wondered if there was a support group for species who'd been accidentally optimized by cosmic forces beyond their understanding. Outside, the galaxy continued its transformation into something that was chaotic, efficient, and absolutely terrifying in its effectiveness. Humanity hadn't started the war, but they'd definitely taught everyone how to finish it. And they were just getting started.